Hello, my YouTube friends. Thanks for joining in tonight. Man, if you haven't hit that subscribe button and slam that bell, please do now because we got a lot of great things going on. And one is the SM7B Shure microphone giveaway. All you have to do, man, hit that subscribe button, slam that bell, type down there as to why you love Shure microphones. It's that easy, man. But tonight's topic is the year the music died. I say that because if John McLean would have knew that, I wonder if he would have wrote the song about the day the music died. I wanted to read you something right here I found. So on February the 3rd, 1959, American rock and roll musician Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper, J.P. Richardson, were killed in a plane crash near Clear Lake, Iowa, together with a pilot, Roger Peterson. The event later became known as the day the music died, after singer-songwriter Don McLean referred to it as such in his 1971 song, American Pie. Well, here we are, folks. It's 2020. And I say that because I think of all the people, musicians out there that are struggling and had plans to go on tour, all the venues that shut down, all the concerts that aren't rocking and rolling right now, all the people in the studio recording. Typically, what happens is they'll cut an album and they'll do their tour, and that's how they go out and they make their money, man. And since 2020, Polestar had mentioned that roughly $9 billion will be lost this year in 2020 simply because of this pandemic that we've been having. And so will it end? And tonight I wanted to raise the question, what will so many do? And where will they go? And will they continue on in the music business? Or will they have to find something different, a different line of work? I know there are a lot of great artists out there, and this is their livelihood. This is how they make their money. But I also think not just the musicians. I think of the people who own nightclubs and the bar business and whatnot. There's so many people that go out there and that's how they make their money is live music, live shows. Just your average people who aren't famous who do live gigs. I think of those people who tour around or just do local scenes, local nightclubs. They'll go out and, they take tips and whatnot, but they're going out and they're playing and they're struggling musicians. And that's how they make their livelihood or extra money. And so the question is, I'm getting a message here. Hang on a second, guys. Hang on one second, man. Let me check this. This is my friend Dennis calling or texting me and says call him. And he is a great engineer, by the way, who actually goes out and does live mixes for famous people all over the world. So this is going to be interesting. Hang in there. Let's see what he's got to say. Let me call Dennis and see if I can get him on the phone, man. Turn up my volume.
It is Randy.
Dennis.
Hey, Randy.
How are you doing, my friend?
Not bad, not bad.
Man.
Glad to be able to join again.
I'm so glad you did, man. I hit you up earlier. I've got a great topic that I'm talking about tonight. And I feel like it'll resonate with many people out there who are in the music industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking of that song. I heard that song by Don McLean, American Pie, the day the music died.
Yeah.
I heard that today, man. And I was thinking, what a great topic. The year.
That song goes back many, 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 many years. And the story behind it, it was he wrote it for remembering the day that the famous plane crash where you had the Big Bopper and Richie Valens and died, and that was very unfortunate.
Yeah. Wow. I wonder. Here we are in 2020, and I think of all the musicians that aren't going out there and just doing even the people that aren't famous that just get their extra money or whatnot, that just do local gigs.
As much as you can, considering the lockdown laws are different all over the country. For instance, I think in California you can't go out right now. You have to stay home.
Wow.
Yeah, it's gotten that bad.
Wow. See all those people. Polestar, I'd mentioned earlier that they had mentioned that roughly $9 billion will be lost in revenue this year, 2020, because of the pandemic. It's just, it's insane to think that, there's so many people out there out of work. And I know this is, you do this, you do live concerts and, for big touring bands and whatnot. And this is your profession too. And, I heard that song today and I was just thinking, man, here we are in this pandemic, man. And, and it's affecting everybody,
Absolutely. It's a small world and we see it now in many ways.
Mm-hmm. So how long have you, you had something going on before this, right? You had some stuff lined up.
Yeah, well, I've always, I started in sound just kind of by accident. And someone suggested I go to school. So I was in school for about 13 months, just to get to kind of the rules of the game, if you want to call it that. And then I just kind of put myself out there, like everyone else. Because one, I needed to pay my parents back for forking out the cash to send me to school once again after I studied something else. And so there weren't that many audio sound studio gigs out there right off the bat. I had before graduating, I had kind of spoken to somebody out west. My father was living in Seattle, so I visited and made some calls and had arranged that somebody had, quote unquote, promised a job. And months later, when I showed up, they had given it to somebody else. So I was kind of stuck and ended up going to Portland, Oregon, a couple of hours south, where I had some friends that were musicians, and ended up, again, making a few calls and made a few interviews happen and ended up working as the sound guy at this big Irish clubhouse. It's still there. It's called Kel's Irish. It's in downtown Portland. And at first they hired me to redo the whole sound system. It was just really old equipment, and they had no idea about what a delay system was. And neither did I.
Right.
But you learn,
right,
obviously.
Right.
And I stayed there for a few years after I installed the system as the house guy. It was a really cool experience. I learned how to make shepherd's pie and drink a lot of Guinness. And at the same time, I was also working with the big local sound company, doing mostly corporate and small regional concerts and stuff like that. Sometimes we would do loadouts at the big or load-ins at the big arena in town, the Rose Garden. But at that point, I wasn't really doing anything large scale or anything like that. Other than every once in a while there would be a giant dog show or something like that. Or the races. All the car races were awesome. That was a lot of big, crazy, insane work out west.
Wow. Wow.
And then beyond that company, I was also working at this company called Fred's Sound of Music, which was an AV store. They sold high-end audiophile equipment, like really nice Macintosh amps, and Corel amps, all this really nice sounding stuff. And I was an integrator. I had a van. I had the bond and stuff. I had ladders and tools and all kinds of stuff in the van. And I would go to people's homes and install their fancy AV, setups.
Nice.
And there was some really fancy stuff. I was, really blown away with some of the stuff that people ask to get done in their homes. So,
wow.
And then also, learning how to, crimp cable, saw, do all that stuff for installation was really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then one year there was a big food festival in town, and it ended up being the Rock Across America from VH1 was in the big stage. And at first I was part of the crew that built the stage. And I had never built stages, and somebody said, "Hey man, you want to do decks?" And I was like, "What's decks?" I was like, "Well, do you have a hammer?" I was like, "Sure, I got a hammer, I'll go." And so we showed up, and all you do is just build this fancy scaffolding that gets, planks of wood on top, and it becomes a huge stage. That was stage of the art back then.
Nice.
And I remember they came through, and it was basically a bunch of regional acts and a national act. And I got along with the guys in the band and the crew, and that crew really well and whatever. And by the end of the weekend, they had asked me to join that tour and finish the last, I think it was like 4 dates.
Wow.
And by the end of the tour, I got a call, and they asked me if I wanted to manage this venue on Wall Street in New York City. So I kind of, took about, I don't know, a couple of hours to think about it, and I called them back and said, "Yeah, sure, I'll be there." And give me about 4 days, and I'll be there. So that's how I ended up in New York City in 1998, and the company that I was working for was fairly prominent in the scope of the events that they did. Not only did they at least then they handled this band called Widespread Panic that I am familiar with. I was kind of a fan of them when I was in college, and then came to work with these guys, and that was their big account. So it was funny to see that. But besides that, in New York City and around that whole tri-state area, they did a lot of regional concert work. And besides the stuff that we did at the venue, which was very high-end stuff, week to week we would have concert series, and 1 week it would be Rod Stewart, the next week it would be Tony Bennett, then the next week it would be Michael Jackson.
Wow.
Actually, not Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson didn't play on that. We did his wedding, but he didn't play. Not his wedding. Sorry, he showed up to Tommy Mottola's wedding. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
It's like one of those fucking old school cartoons where you see all the famous people.
Right.
It was like that, and on top of that, I have to mix modern, so it was very, very surreal.
Wow.
But that was basically the type of event that we did, and the whole gamut. We did all kinds of stuff. I put a post on Instagram yesterday of an event that I did and I think it was 1999. I mixed monitors for Run DMC when they were doing their final and last comeback. It was all the real 3 guys at this like really shady club in Jamaica, Queens, and there was even a shooting before the show happened.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, I hid under the console and everything, but the show happened afterwards.
Wow!
Nobody got hurt, but it was great.
Right. They continue on.
Yeah. It just happened. Keep going, and all kinds of stuff. That's the cool thing about New York is that you never know what kind of day you're gonna have doing sound. And in some ways, I was never really that upset that I didn't tour that much. And I did a couple of years, but even the tour that I did was by any yardstick, it would be considered luxurious. I was getting flown in and out of Portland. I would fly out on Thursday, and come back Sunday night. Be home 3 days and then fly out again.
Wow.
That was, by anybody's standards, is luxury touring. I've never toured in a bus.
Well, you would fly everywhere you went.
I flew everywhere, yeah, and I took a guitar and everything. I told people I played for Stevie Wonder, and they never took my guitar.
Oh wow, yeah. Otherwise, they would have took it.
And I still tell people that.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So you think if you would have wouldn't have went through that door when you were asked to tour with those guys or finish out their tour, you think things would have been different for you?
Oh yeah. I think. Well, if anything, things would have gone a lot slower.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a matter of just getting out of the little small town thing. Although Portland, in terms of a music scene, was very, very powerful. There was a lot. There's still a lot of music. There's a lot of opportunity even back then, and it was just a matter of time. It could have happened a lot of different ways. Even today, you could probably put a fairly comprehensive studio in Portland and probably make a decent living if you know what you're doing.
Wow.
There's that much music up there.
Wow, that's nice.
And that's just in terms of just, bringing in business in and out recording. Nothing about, advancing yourself or getting into the bigger and better projects and things like that. It's just, bread and butter type stuff. Easy to do that up there. But all of us, aspire to something a little better. And when I was shown that like you say, that door to something better, and they said, I got this venue in New York, and it was the way that they worded it was, I have a venue on Wall Street with a Vidosk and a Midas, and those are very key words that go well together, and you jump at it. A Vidosk was back then a brand new state-of-the-art sound system. And what they did is still state-of-the-art today.
Wow.
And, who's not going to jump at an opportunity to manage the sound for a venue on Wall Street?
Wow.
With a brand new state-of-the-art system.
No kidding.
So, yeah, sure, it was scary. You think about it. I never done anything like that. The last time I had been in New York, it was for, I was maybe 10 years old.
Right.
So, it was this, I wasn't really intimidated, but you kind of think about it.
Yeah.
But, as far as I looked at it, it was like another job, going to another place to do another job. And that's what it ended up being. It still kind of is today. So I still consider having come to New York for work, and that's what I did. Right.
And then that led to other avenues as well for you.
Oh, yeah. It was, it led me back to the studio world, not because I was in live sound, but because I had worked with somebody in live sound that had worked with Mick.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that whole thing happened. It was very serendipitous, as they say. I got an email from my buddy Sam. He is an English guy. I told you about him. He had worked at Abbey Road, as far as I know, but had also worked with Mick on a project in Switzerland. There's a famous studio outside of Montreux that a lot of other people that did like the Montreux Jazz Festival ended up working there by default, and it became fairly famous. Queen stuff got done there. It was called Mountain Studios, and Sam had worked there as an assistant and knew Mick because they had worked together. So Sam sent me an email one day. He said, "Hey man, I think this guy, I think he lives near you. He's kind of a big deal, and you should give him a call. He loves Scotch." That was the email. I'll remember that forever.
Wow.
And so I had the number, and I called for like 3-4 weeks, and I was, really persistent about it. And I couldn't, I left a couple of messages, but I didn't know why they just, weren't calling back. And then one day I finally got someone. I called after 1 o'clock, and Mick answered, and I talked to him, and we totally, we're like, we knew each other, kind of like shooting the shit. He's like, yeah, come on in tomorrow, we'll check it out. And, next day I went over, we totally hung out, had lunch, hit it off. It was great. And the day after that, he invited me back afterwards. And the day after that, we did an Eric Clapton record.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So it all goes back to going to that first door that you took that led you to meeting Mick.
But even then, it was also a learning curve, obviously, because it was extremely high end. And my closest experience to having done anything in a real studio was when I attended Full Sail. And even then, it was limited, when you're only exposed to the stuff for so long. So it's really not something that you remember that vividly. However, it was easy to take in terms that it was in Mick's house.
Right.
It wasn't, you weren't going to a big facility, although his place looked like a freaking racing car.
Right.
It's a really amazing small studio that had all the latest and best gear you could think of.
Yeah. I've seen pictures you sent me of that, man. That was right. Just wow.
So going there every day, I still pinch myself thinking that I went there every day. Whenever I wasn't doing anything in the city, I'd be like, it was easy. Drive, I could get up late, do whatever I wanted. Get up there at noon, basically get the whole control room, the whole session set up by 1, and that's when Mick would come down and sit down on his console, do his cue sheet, his cue list in the console, and start mixing away around, depending on how hungry he was, I guess, or how hungry we were, or the session really. We would have a lunch around 4 or 5 or something like that. Sometimes we go out to eat, sometimes deliver, a lot of times I pick up.
Wow.
And then we keep mixing until about 9:30 or 10 or so, 10, sometimes 11. And then everything gets printed. And then we do shots and everybody goes home.
Wow. And that went on for how long, Dennis?
I did that from about September of 2001. No, actually, no. By September, I was already working there. September 2001, I was already there because I remember we were doing a session, and then I worked in the city on 9/11, and then I had to go back on Wednesday. Obviously, I didn't go back on Wednesday. I went back on Thursday. After that,
wow.
9/11 was on Tuesday.
Wow.
I started with them, I think it must have been like July 2001, I'm thinking.
Wow.
And I think the last few sessions we did there must have been 2013 or something like that. And that's when Mick started to go back and forth a lot to LA. He got involved in the Daft Punk project long before it was even announced. And he was going back and forth and doing work with them. And then coming back, doing some work here, and then at the same time, just kind of just trying to decide what to do about the house, because he was already made up his mind about moving to Los Angeles. And he didn't know what to do about the house and the gear and all that, so he asked me to help him out. And over the course of about, I think it must have been about 2 or 3 months, I was able to get all his stuff that he wanted to take with him all packed and stuff and sent over. And I think I told you that we found someone in Maryland, the college, that made a deal with them to take the console as a donation. Wow. And they came to pick it up. They made it into a student project, and they picked up the main Sony Oxford console and the 2 extra smaller frames that he had as parts.
Wow. So how many artists were you able to be in there with him? I mean, you had mentioned Eric Clapton and several others. But...
Well, I never met a lot of the artists. We never met a lot of the artists. Mick lived, well, I would say an hour and a half north of the city. Mm-hmm. And the area is fairly inaccessible if you kind of pick the wrong time of the year. Right. It's it was kind of a McMansion type of residential area. And, in those days, a lot of the car services just wouldn't come. And, artists. They don't drive themselves. So but we, from time to time, we did see some people come up. It was mostly a lot of producers that would come, a lot of car messengers. But a couple of artists did come. Bette Midler came up. Let's see, Michael Jackson came up. Talia, who is Tommy Mottola's wife. Tommy Mottola was the head of Sony Records for a few years. And by weird coincidence, like I told you before, I did monitors at his wedding.
Wow.
Before meeting Mick.
Wow.
That had nothing to do with meeting Mick.
Wow, that's
cool.
And
then I met Tommy at his house. I was like doing dishes in the kitchen, and Tommy Mottola comes down the stairs, and he kind of goes towards the studio and stops, turns around, he looks at me, goes like, "Where do I know you from?" I said, "I did the sound for your wedding a few weeks ago, and I'm literally doing dishes."
That's funny, man. He goes, "But I know you."
Yeah, it's like, "I know you from somewhere." It's like, yeah.
Oh,
and funny. And then the year after, I did the sound for his anniversary at the same venue.
Wow.
It was just him, his wife, and about 6 sharpshooters.
Wow.
And the CD, I just played the CD. It wasn't anything special.
So who was the guy that was standing in the picture by Bette Midler? Is that the guy you're talking about?
That's Robbie Buchanan. Robbie Buchanan, for that record, which is called Cool You. Everybody should listen to it. It's an awesome record, a Christmas record, actually.
Okay.
And Cool You, and that's Robbie Buchanan. He produced that record, and Robbie came through the ranks in the music industry. He came out first. He's an amazing keyboard player, piano player.
Okay.
And he used to play keyboards with like Whitney Houston and stuff like that on the road.
Oh, wow.
And then from then on went, with another, I don't even know his credits, to be perfectly honest, but they're incredible.
Wow.
Beyond what I just said. But he's now, he's done everything in terms of production. Let's see who else came up there. We had Desmond Child come over. We had the guy who produced Meatloaf, Jim Steinman.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yes, dude. Yeah, he did that. He did, remember Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart?
Yes.
He did all that stuff. He did all the Bat Out of Hell stuff and a bunch of other shit. But we had him in the studio for a German artist, an opera artist. No, actually, she's English. What's her name? Rachel Church? No, something Church. I forget her first name. But Jim Steinman was there, and in the flesh, it's just when you go back and you Google who the dude is in the next room, you're like, holy shit,
Wow.
So, and then, the guy that produced all the records for Eric Clapton was always there, Simon Climbing. And he himself also goes back to the British scene as an artist himself. And I had no idea who this guy is with this funny name that I never heard, Simon Climbing. So it sounds like a clown to me.
Wow.
But he's a really cool dude, really down to earth. But then you find out that this guy was as big as Wham when Wham was big, like in Europe.
Wow.
He was part of another duo that was kind of as big, but didn't make it as worldwide. But they sold a ton of records. This guy is like worth at least 400 million pounds.
Oh, wow, man.
So he's a musician himself also, but also a singer and hard singer. And he, since, the late 80s, became just strictly a producer. Did a lot of George Michael stuff, a lot of European artists. And, ended up started doing Clapton when he did, I don't think he did Pilgrim. So Mick started with Pilgrim. Simon may have started with Riding with the King, which Eric did with B.B. King.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And from that on, it was all Simon Climbing up until at least the one that we did with Eric and J.J. Cale, which was called Road to Escondido. Wow. Which was another really cool record. We spoke to J.J. a bunch of times. He insisted on being called Cale. And Simon showed us on Google Earth where JJ's trailer was in Northern California. It was really cool.
Wow.
He lived he had all his gear on a really really fancy double wide outside of his mansion.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like an outside little studio. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he did. And, it's perfectly acceptable, obviously.
Wow.
So it was funny to see it, on Google Earth.
That's cool, man. So, do you think
like that, a bunch of other stuff, I can think there's so many projects that we did up there that were just, when you think about it, just ridiculous, stuff that you're like, who is this person again? What?
Right. Yeah. When you
going back to that the Christmas record by Bette Midler, I had to follow a score, an orchestral score, and it was handwritten. It was probably one of the last handwritten scores by Arif Mardin, who was the big famous conductor for Atlantic Records. He did all the Aretha Franklin stuff, Sinatra, all that stuff.
Wow,
and
dude!
This was a handwritten orchestral score.
Wow.
And I'm following, right, and then I see, I go up to the top in the middle on a break, and I see Arif Mardin. I almost dropped it.
Yeah, right. Wow, man. Wow.
And that's a nice record. And he did without that. There's really some nice moments in there. There's the one Hawaiian song. I don't know if you know, or folks listening, that Bette Midler is a native of Hawaii, and she was born and raised there. And later on came out to the States to the mainland to do what she did. But she's still a very nice lady, and she's very down to earth. We had a fantastic time with her over, I think it was a week and a half that she came over to the studio every day. She drove herself. She washed our dishes one day, and and I think it shows in her music. And a couple of the songs, besides being just your traditional song from that you listen to Christmas, there's one called Melik and Kaliki Maka, which is a famous Hawaiian tune.
Yes.
And it's got, I think, one of the most beautiful orchestras I've heard.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So
and the singing's amazing too.
Yeah, so she was just real down to earth, just
very down to earth, yeah.
Wow.
Didn't wear anything fancy, and just wore like shorts and flip flops.
Wow.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, Christmas records, the big Christmas records get done in the summer.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so y'all have plenty of time to work on it and get it all ready. In other words, yeah.
It's just a matter for the records to get done, and obviously to do all the promotion afterwards, and all the marketing stuff that gets done before the holidays.
Right. And didn't she come in and do some vocal tracks with you guys, or she came in?
No, with us. It was Talia that did and did stuff, and also Vanessa Williams came and did vocals there with us.
Wow.
Yeah, she was also really, really nice. I still remember her email address and everything.
So I was going to ask you, I had on one of my questions the other day. I never got around to asking you, but when you have someone like Bette coming in, or someone famous like that coming in to do vocal tracks, did Mick did he have like a specific microphone in mind that he was going to use on them, or did the artist have in their own mind what they wanted to sing through?
It depends on who it was and if he was familiar with their voice. In the case of Talia, he hadn't recorded her voice, but Meg, I think, was fresh at that point, a couple of years from winning a Latin Grammy for one of her records. So I think he was, he knew what to do with her vocals. And if I remember correctly, it may have been that Sony 800G.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Because that's another thing, is that also that when we were doing a lot of stuff for Mottola, Mick was basically under contract to Sony, not necessarily to use their gear, but a lot of his gear was kind of, given to him under quite a big of a discount. And it did sound good. Mick doesn't pick anything that sounds shitty.
Right.
So it is a very good mic, and for women mostly, it sounded very, very good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet.
For women, it sounds very, very good. If it's your standard pop vocal, Celine Dion, this type of women that sings, ballads type thing.
Right. It's just a real clarity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super quiet, I bet.
Yeah, it's the Sony sound is very solid state. It's just that particular sound, that particular microphone, besides the element itself, you see it's got a body of the mic with the grill and the cage, and it has this protuberance in the back. That's just to compensate for the heat buildup inside the microphone and the electronics. That's a heat dissipation device.
Wow.
It's a big heat sink.
So does so it's a heat sink, kind of like on an amplifier or something.
But the microphone itself doesn't get any warmer than one of those LED bulbs that doesn't get very warm.
Oh wow! So it just dissipates out on that heat sink.
Yeah, it's just a physical principle that it's kind of like a sail that catches wind.
Wow!
That's how those things dissipate heat, because they has that physical footprint. Whatever wind it takes, what's it called? Adds up as cooling.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what the grooves are there for too. So let the air flow between them.
Exactly.
Nice. Kind of like, I guess, a car amplifier or any kind of amplifier at that.
Yeah. Anytime you see any kind of gear or anything that becomes hot and has something like that on top, that's a cooling device. It's a heat sink.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So do you think a lot of these people are still doing a lot of work? I mean, even though a lot of people in the music industry is out of work?
I'm sure a lot of whoever. It really does depend. You see a lot of folks online that they have their own channels or whatever. They've been doing stuff from home, or they do collaborations with folks.
Right.
I think in general, if it's a real artist, they stayed active, whether they decided to become public doing this whole thing or not. It's your guess is as good as mine. We see what we see every day. Right. But it seems like everyone just kind of kept doing their thing, in terms of at least remaining somewhat positive and engaged and creative. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure it's not easy.
No, you're seeing a lot of these videos where, I could be here in Texas, you in New York, and then, another band member in California, and we all collaborate on a song together in real time.
Yeah. Well, that stuff, it's actually never really done in real time. There's really nothing out there that can allows you to do that yet. That is done. Everyone kind of does their own performance to a pre-recorded track or a click or something like that, and then the videos all put together.
Oh,
to the mixed audio that everyone recorded.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I was thinking, man, how are they? Yeah.
No, there's no way to do that at this point yet. Although some people claim that the latency is really low, it's still kind of impossible.
I know, and you know what? I was questioning that the other day, because I forget who it was that was playing, but I was thinking, man, they're playing a part, but there still feels that like there's separation between the band. You can tell they're not in one room.
If the band is pretty tight, it works. Otherwise, there's still kind of like a little bit of it's not quite tight. Sure. Mm-hmm. But it does still matter on the band itself and how good they are, and it obviously becomes better when they know what they're doing.
Right.
I did early on. I think I was a month into this. One of my brothers in Florida is married to this lady who's a teacher, and she has a theater program, and they were stuck without being able to do their musical that year, so they were really bummed and everything. And then the lady decided to do a giant video with all the girls singing or whatever. And it was like 80 girls and a couple of boys.
Wow.
Doing one of the big songs from Frozen.
Okay.
So she called me up. She's like, hey, so how can we do this? I was like, well, it's going to be tough because, all these kids are not professional engineers.
Right.
Or singers. And so I kind of had to one think quickly and come up with a very easy way for everyone to give me something consistent that I could work with. Right. That's really where it came to the best, that they could do. And I basically suggested that all the kids would go in a small enclosed space, a space, a closet or something like that didn't have a lot of resonance, and have themselves sing while they were filming themselves, listening to this whatever song this woman chose to use as a reference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I had I think it was individually like close to about 80 or 90 individual videos of kids singing the different parts of the song.
Wow.
And I mixed them all like you would mix anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 2-track reference track instrumental, and then I have all their tracks with all their vocals. And eventually it was easy to determine which part. Most of them had the choruses, and a couple of girls were the soloists, and so it wasn't very difficult to put together.
Wow.
But it was a challenge because mostly not everyone had the same ambience in their closet, or some people just ignored using the closet. Some people ignored using their headphones. So you had all kinds of crazy ambiences, from crazy, really big hallways to,
Wow.
I think somebody did it in the garage and it just sounded horrible. It's just like, oh my God.
Can't use it.
But ultimately it ended up sounding really nice. And it wasn't bad at all.
So you had to decipher through a lot of it, though, basically, right? And then finally.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of TLC in terms of making sure that all that air didn't overlap negatively,
Mm-hmm.
when they were singing. So I had to clean a lot of stuff. But it wasn't terrible, and they paid my rates. So it wasn't, anything that I couldn't really manage in any way. It was work. It was paid work, and I still had to do it. It sounded cool.
Wow.
And the kids were happy at the end of the day. They sounded like they were, on American Idol.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. So, so the small space is really the best way to go in large groups like that when you're doing stuff like that, because you're not having to mix different size rooms. Basically, is that what you're saying?
Well, you're taking you're taking the fact that you're recording through a headset microphone out of the image as much as possible. If you're not battling a big cavernous room, so that's why I suggest that if you can have your child go in a closet that has lots of clothes, a walk-in closet or something like that,
Be better. Yeah.
The better, because otherwise you start hearing, it's like when people do their YouTube videos, they don't use a microphone or anything professional. You hear it's just a really ambient, far away sound of their voice,
Right.
And then they play the guitar, it's blaring like crazy.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah, just some simple little steps would cure the problem, wouldn't it?
But
Wow.
what we do is a lot of best guesses, but they're educated best guesses. It's not stuff that just happens by chance.
Right.
So, and unfortunately, a lot of people starting out don't know a lot of these very simple things, and a lot of it's just common sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that was a big thing. I was on my mind tonight, and I wanted to, put that as a title, because there's a big part of me that's concerned for everybody in these times of that we're in, and it it doesn't stop with just the guy who goes down the street to the local bar and does a little gig every night.
It goes everywhere. Yeah. And fast forwarding to what you were saying earlier. Yeah, this year, last time I worked was literally March 7th. I was doing one of my positions this year was as a monitor engineer for a band in New York called the Fab Four. It's 5 guys that do probably some of the best Beatle covers there are out there, and we were doing a world tour, and the last date was on the 7th of March in Fort Lauderdale.
Wow.
And beyond that, all my corporate stuff went away, and a bunch of stuff lined up with Microsoft, starting in Cancun in late April, I think, and then moving on, I think, to California, and then off to, I think, Asia somewhere. I forgot. I never got the memo of that.
Wow.
It was going to be a very good year.
Man. And so here we are, what, 10 months into it now?
Mm-hmm.
10 months into it.
But I'll tell you what, all the ringing in my ears is almost gone.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I bet, man.
Now, you do obviously over time, for different reasons, do develop a little bit of what they call the head noise.
Right.
And one of the good things about the pandemic and all this silent has that it has diminished a little bit. So
nice.
I'm sure a lot of folks haven't really thought about that, but I think it's very important. Because I'm sure when we do go back, people are not going to be as loud right off the top.
Right.
They're going to realize that, well, that was loud before.
Mm-hmm. Is that something you had to watch a lot, like at certain venues, as far as decibels go?
It varies sometimes from city to city, sometimes county to county, country to country. People have different ideas of what it is for loudest. Sometimes they have actual professionals involved. Sometimes they're really not. I once had a corporate event. It was a bar mitzvah. They're very popular in New York City, and this type of or level of party, rather, the people throwing the parties have a lot of money. So it's not your average bar mitzvah. Mm-hmm. And it gets really loud. The sound systems are incredibly huge, and people pay for very loud music to be played until very, very loud time, very loud hours. Some people don't like it. I remember had one time the security guy knocks on the door of our booth, and and there's a guest with him, and the guy hands him a card. And the security guy hands me the card, and the card says, "You are risking litigation. It's 80 dB." At table like 17 or something.
Oh my gosh.
And I went out there. I went outside of the booth, and I literally clapped in the guy's face. And I said,
there's your
85 dB.
Right.
And I went back to my booth. Risk litigation. Are you kidding me? Who tries to sue somebody and somebody when you're invited to a party?
Exactly. That's hilarious, man. That is really funny. And yeah, so you clapped and said, "There's your 85 decibels right there."
Well, I just did like a big clap, with my palms open. And I said, "That's 85 dB.
Wow. And you were probably right on it too, man.
And turned right back and went into my booth.
That's hilarious, man. That's funny.
That was a very interesting venue. It was under the 59th Street Bridge. Still there. I don't know if they probably still do parties. Those people still have money.
Yeah.
But it was that's definitely another topic for another show.
Yeah,
crazy venues in New York City.
Wow. Well, I bet you've seen a lot of them, huh? I mean,
well, you're dealing with mostly really old buildings, and they were obviously never built for production.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Even the production venues were not. The stagecraft wasn't a thing back then. Nobody's mentioned anything, but the closest anything came to, taking sound into consideration was back in the early 20s, where there was no amplification. So it was just the buildings were made to focus sound, and that was as close as it got.
Wow. No diffusers.
Some of those theaters work, though. There was a theater actually here in the county that I live in, Westchester County, outside the city. There's a venue nearby called Terrytown Music Hall, and it's been there since like the late 1800s. It was used for the HBO show. What's it? The one show that's based in the 1800s, Boardwalk or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. they shot a lot of the stuff on that theater, and I do a lot of mixing. Not as much anymore, but I used to do a lot of mixing there for a lot of acts. And it's one of those venues that was just built out of wood, and it sounded good without anything.
Wow.
But then, the sound system we added, it was just really right for it. It wasn't a huge sound system, but it was a really good sound system. And it was at least for me, it wasn't difficult to make it sound nice.
So the acoustics in there just sounded phenomenal, huh? I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't difficult to make it sound decent,
Wow.
At least for me.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of shows there that I don't know how people had trouble mixing there, but
wow.
Go ahead.
Sounded good though. Was it like a stadium in front of the area that the band played, or what? Or how was it set up?
Oh, this place? No, it's a small. It's like a 700 theater. Sits like maybe 300 downstairs, and the rest at the top, or maybe the other way around.
Oh, okay, I can see it.
Yeah, it's a small, old school regional theater.
Oh wow, I bet it did sound good, man.
Yeah.
There's a few here in my town like that, built like that, and the acoustics, everything is just, it was built, many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was if you knew what you're doing, it wasn't difficult to make it sound right.
Right.
But they had its challenges like anything else. Immediately on top of the area where you normally would set up to mix the show in front of a house was a big rotunda inside the ceiling. So it's just this echo thing right above you.
Oh, nice.
So you had to kind of either move your console if you were allowed, or know that that's happening. So you kind of keep it in when you're making your your listening decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a venue's a venue.
Yeah, they have this place, the Jefferson Theater here where I'm at, and I really need to look and see the year they built that. But I know they went in and refurbished a lot of things and repainted and did whatnot through the years. But every time I go to a little concert there, whether it's live orchestra or something like that,
I think there's still a lot of those old venues in Texas. It just depends really where you are.
Yeah,
a lot of the theaters up here that are regional used to be basically old. At least in this county, Westchester, there's a lot of old Paramount theaters, and they come to from an era where Paramount Movies was a big studio and they could afford their own theaters across the country.
Mm-hmm.
So every large town has, at least around here, like Peekskill has a Paramount theater. This other place, I forget. A couple other towns also have a Paramount theater, and they're all the same thing. I've done events in all of them, and they've all basically set up exactly the same thing. It's basically exactly the same way.
Wow, and sound great. And everyone sound.
They were made for movies. They weren't made for stage productions.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of them actually got. The one in Peekskill was remodeled recently, and supposedly it sounds really good now. That used to be a horrendous sound system, and the room was just fucking ridiculous.
Wow.
But, you do what you did.
Right. Wow. So when y'all go set up and whatnot, I guess it just take the time varied, right? I mean, as far as getting the sound check.
It varied depending on what the show was, or what, who was providing gear, who was providing help. For instance, the other town I was thinking of was Middletown, New York. The Paramount in Middletown, New York was even worse than the other one. At this point, all these theaters are basically privately owned, and they're funded by public money, so it's always very little. And volunteers are basically all you get, or students and people that just really don't know much. So a lot of those events end up being very arduous and long days. But you learn a lot because, at least from my perspective, I had the challenge of I still had the expectation of whoever was the client and whoever was the public, and the fact that in some cases the equipment was pretty garbage. They don't know,
right?
So you still have to make the best you can with it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't sit there and go, "Oh man, this console sucks.
Right.
Why do I have PVMs? Why are these speakers hairy? You can't. You just find out what works, plug it up, and start moving faders.
Right.
And it's great to see you in that venue. I did some regional stuff, a lot of like regional like battle of the bands, a lot of high school events and stuff. And those were fun, in which, at least for me, it was kind of like a challenge. I always liked when people don't come to the console to like tell me why does it sound a certain way.
Right.
And it's always even better for me to see people walking up and then they just turn around, they listen, they turn around, they look at me, they turn around, and then they go back to their chair. And it's awesome. I love that.
Right.
Because, especially if it's their kid. I've seen that happen. Like I see a parent like sitting and looking at the stage with their arms like crossed, like a person they're like, they're used to being caring about it.
Right. Right.
And then they just you see them relax a little more. And then you see them start getting excited. They start applauding, and then that's really nice.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And too, I'm sure a lot of them just want to see, what you're doing and what you got back there too, right? I mean, they've never seen.
It's mostly kids that do that.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few parents that come and try to check out stuff, but parents are really never really interested in anything like that. They're usually really tired. No intentions of meeting anybody new, anyways.
Yeah.
But besides all that corporate stuff that I did, when I was living up here, like I said, you get into all kinds of different job opportunities regarding audio. And besides the studio stuff, I was just, working a lot of different regional stuff. And one of them was I was the head audio person at this little regional theater in another town called Nyack, across the Hudson River. And there it was like a proper off-Broadway theater house. We had regional productions coming through every other month. And that was really neat because I got to see, and operate real plays.
Wow. I bet you that was fun.
Yeah. The very, one of the very cool ones that I remember was with Sally Struthers. And I'm sure you remember who Sally Struthers is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And she's a great actress. And she actually this play's still going around these days. This is going this is definitely at least 15 or 16 years.
Wow.
The play is called Always Patsy Cline. And Sally plays the role of Patsy Cline's friend, that, this lady that became really good friends with Patsy Cline from her hometown. They had basically nothing in common, but they hit it off.
Oh, wow.
And so the whole play is about that. And in the process, there's a lot of Patsy Cline music, and I was just completely, obviously, nuts about it.
Wow. I bet you that was a lot of fun, dude.
Oh, yeah. And, and working in that environment, the theater is a completely different story. It's very different than your standard studio production, or your studio, or your corporate production, or even your music production. It's a completely different environment.
Mm-hmm.
And get to see a lot of really cool theater done by really talented young people, or people that are not necessarily on Broadway.
Right.
So that off-Broadway thing is an actual thing. And it's a circuit of people that go all over the country on a regional level and do really good work. And I learned a ton.
Wow.
And so a lot of really cool performances. All ages, all people, young people, kids.
Mm-hmm.
Doing all the big Broadway plays I've done and became aware of through this whole regional theater thing.
Wow, did you like doing that a lot? I mean.
Oh, yeah. It's super enjoyable.
Yeah.
And
wow.
in fact, in one of them, in that place, Terrytown Music Hall, they had also a bunch of different theater programs come through, and one of them was run, or is run still, by this lady Danielle, who's married to Jordan Rudess, who plays keyboards in Dream Theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they live in that town, Nyack, and she has a theater program for kids. And she was doing a play at that theater, and Jordan Rudess was the keyboard player in the pit. And that's how I met him.
That's awesome.
We worked together in a couple of different places, and he was cool. You don't bring up anything besides that. You're working that gig, and that's it.
Wow, that's cool, man.
And it was great. He's obviously an incredible talent. It wasn't really a big band at all. It was him and a drummer, and that was just basically the pit band. But other productions, we did have full pit bands, and that was really, really fun.
Wow. Yeah, man, that sounds so the clientele was different too. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One time I did the front of house sound for what's his name? Vanilla Fudge.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. Well, at least the remaining members of Vanilla Fudge. It was still Carmina Pease and the big guy that plays guitar, and it was awesome. Another time, a couple of times I did sound for the Turtles.
That's awesome, man.
One time I mixed front of house with them, and they had Greg Hawkes of the Cars playing keyboards for them.
Nice.
And I'm like helping this guy load in, and I'm like, I know you from somewhere. And I'm just thinking this, not saying anything, because again, you're just doing the gig and you're doing your thing. But a lot of these guys just kind of look very rock and roll.
Right.
They have the bleach hair and it's kind of spiky and whatever. And I was like, man, this guy looks very familiar. And I think it was like after lunch or something. We were just chatting on stage after everything's done. We did sound check and everything. And it's like, man, you look super familiar. You was playing with these guys or something? It was like, oh man, no, I used to play with the Cars.
Oh wow, I love that group too, man.
And a couple of years later, we met Rick Ocasek at Mix.
Wow.
He was producing a song for somebody, and he was there working with us for a couple of weeks.
Wow. I like that story you told me about seeing Dom and Dave.
Oh, that was incredible. That's New York for you, man. You just don't know who you're going to see on the street.
Who you're going to see. I know. Yeah. Wow. Isn't that something, man? But when he opened his mouth, you knew it was him.
You knew. He wasn't even facing me. It was 3 steps out of the elevator, and I hear this guy talking to the ball man in his building. And he just looked like some old Jewish guy from the back, short hair and gray. But his David, David Lee Roth's voice.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, baby, we're going to eat. And I'm like, I go, Diamond Dave. And he turns around and he goes, yeah, baby, that's me. Who are you? Like, I'm Dennis. My friend lives here too in your building. I'm just visiting. He's like, all right, it's really cool. Well, I'm going to dinner with my party. I'll see you later. And it was just awesome. Just like you were just missing the hair, but it was just still him right in front of you. It was incredible,
That's amazing.
And he had he had a lady with him. And I think it was probably a bodyguard. He got really kind of puffed up a little bit, but obviously nothing happened. But you see that in New York a lot. A lot of people with bodyguards. They're instantly very much
on cue.
Alert.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And they hang real close to him. I guess they have.
Yeah.
To.
But,
wow.
This guy wasn't by far the biggest bodyguard I've seen.
Wow.
The Russian guys are big, and the Italian guys are even bigger.
Really?
Oh yeah.
And you can tell. You can spot them. Wow.
Yeah, but usually you can tell by their clothing.
Mm-hmm.
The Italian guys really had really real clothes. The Russian guys had all the fake stuff that was expensive.
Mm-hmm. But the Italian guys, you could tell it was suits or what?
Suits and everything. But it was I've done stuff for Italians from Italy and Italians from all 3 boroughs, if you want to call it that.
Oh, that's good, man.
Yeah, I did 3 days for Paul Anka, and the first day was in a little place in Long Island, the second day was a little place on Staten Island, and the last day was a little Italian place in Brooklyn. All 3 places were small Italian restaurants. Oh,
I bet that was cool. Huh?
It was a little intimidating because it was the mob.
Right.
And the second day in Long Island, one of the guys shook a bunch of money at me to give him the microphone for his buddy to sing.
Oh, wow.
And the guy like chickened out at the last minute, but I got to keep the $300.
That's nice.
Yeah.
He didn't want to do it, huh?
It's one of the only times I smiled when somebody called me DJ.
Right. They hand you money.
You got it, sir. Here's your mic.
Oh, that's good, man. That's good. So, yeah, man. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just, I love these stories, man, and they need to be told. And this is what being a part of the music industry is about. And this is just, and it's a beautiful thing. And if there's anything else said, I hope it will continue. The music doesn't die. And we can move forward through this 2020 and open things up and get past all this. So all the musicians and people who are in every avenue a part of music can go back to work, man.
Well, all of us are really eager to get out. I was just before our call, I was on a call that I have every Friday night with a group of folks that are also in my field and live sound at a high level, and it's led by Robert Scovel, who ran the sound for Tom Petty for the last 20 years.
Wow.
And among the people that attend this call are people that mix or ZZ Top, Paul Simon, AC/DC, and so forth and so on. So it's a group of folks that have been at it, way longer than I have, and from whom not only me, but a lot of the other folks that attend can learn a ton from.
Right.
And have so far. There's a couple of podcasts, and some of these guys have been part of it, and some of their stories are just out of this world.
Amazing. Yeah. So you told me about that. So
yeah, I'll send you a couple of those links. There's some really good stories out there. Even it's just listen to something slightly different from what it is that a lot of us do in the studio. A lot of times we don't think about those things, because I remember there was a time, believe it or not, that I had no intentions whatsoever of doing live sound at all.
Wow. Just
wow. Zero. Yeah. 20 years ago, you would have asked me, I would have been like, what are you smoking?
Wow. Really? You just had no interest?
It was just a necessity. Somebody said, like I said, when I showed up in Seattle, they said, oh, so sorry, we gave that job away. It became kind of like a necessity thing. And then I was just kind of like, I'll take whatever comes around.
Wow.
That is audio related.
Right.
Because I didn't want to diversify. People are like, yeah, it's better if you do a lot of things. However, it's also bad for you if you know a lot of things. If you at least concentrate in at least audio, whether you end up doing audio for TV or broadcast or stuff, you're at least doing audio.
Right.
So for X, Y, or Z reason, I end up doing exactly all of those things and many more. I've done sound for all those things. TV, I've done sound for broadcast, studio sound, and obviously live sound, sports sound I've done also.
Wow.
So you end up dipping in, you show up to do one thing and they expect you to do something else, but you say, no, that's not what I do. It's still a matter of getting a microphone and a signal up, so it wasn't really that different.
Right.
That's literally how I got involved in broadcast.
Wow.
I showed up to the job site expecting to doing a regular front of house gig, and they were like, no, you're in the truck.
That's okay though, man.
It was a completely new set of circumstances, new equipment, things that I wasn't used to. But at that point, if you paid attention to your training, you will know what to do.
Right.
And it did.
Wow, it paid off.
You shut your mouth, you ask the right questions, you pay attention, and you make the day through. And it was not a problem. And you come out with flying colors, and you get called again to do something very similar and bigger next time.
That's wonderful, man.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful story.
I did stuff with I was pulling up some credentials here, because obviously a lot of us, I keep a lot of mementos and stuff of some of the cool stuff that I do, and it becomes kind of like a thing. And now I'm starting to put a lot of things on frames, and finding all these old passes and stuff that I completely forgot I had done. It's pretty neat to see the variety. Like, for instance, I have a UN pass here for the United Nations.
Wow. Yeah, man, you need to keep all that, man. You need to just get
it's all here. Yeah. I'm putting it all in frames.
There you go.
I have my pass here when I did Smokey Robinson. I have my pass here when I went to see Santana. This is when I was with SSL. I forget the man's name. He does monitors with Carlos. And he was one of our earlier users with the SSL console, the live console. And he invited us over a couple of times. And I have that pass here. I have my pass here for when I did monitors for Little Steven.
Wow.
That was really nice. I have, oh shit, this is nice. My studio pass for this set of Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
For their 40th anniversary. We supplied the console that they used for Monroe World.
Oh, wow. I bet that was really cool.
And I wasn't there for that show, but we brought in the console. I watched a little bit of the rehearsals. It was like Kanye West and shit. It was really, super great into it, but whatever.
Right. It was just being able to be there and see all that and how it took place.
I got my credential here for when the big Dave Chappelle special when he came back in 2014.
Okay. Wow.
At Radio City.
Yeah.
I have my credential here from the 2008 New York Rock show. I was there for 3 months. I made so much money. I bought a car out of that.
Wow, man.
Funny enough.
Yeah.
I have my thing here when I did a broadcast for the BMW i3 world premiere.
Wow.
They were launching the car, and they had this big event plan. The car drove up. Was it that? No, this was not the one for Daniel Craig. The BMW event was just they brought in the car, and they drove it around the set and stuff, and it was cool. I got a nice little diary.
Yeah,
the cover smells like a BMW.
Wow, that's cool, man. Yeah,
another one for Land Rover, and that one had Daniel Craig in it inside the car.
Oh, wow.
He's a tiny little dude.
Is he?
Yeah, he's shorter than me, and I'm 5'10".
Oh, wow. What, is he like 5'8" or something?
He's a little taller than Tom Cruise. I've done stuff with Tom Cruise, too.
Wow. That's cool, man.
And here's one also from Radio City, also, with the lady that sang that song from Frozen.
Yeah.
Idina Menzel. She had a big concert there.
Oh, wow. She can sing, man. That girl.
Yeah, that was a big orchestra.
Wow. See, I like stuff like that, man. I really dig that orchestra stuff, man. It's just, I don't know, just something about it.
I'll send you some multi-tracks also. I have orchestra multi-tracks from, it was last year. The Koch brothers, those old rich guys.
Yeah.
One of them died.
Wow.
And they did, the remaining one did a big tribute for the dead one at Lincoln Center. They brought the big orchestra. Actually, it was the New York, is it New York Symphonic? Yeah. Or it's not the New York Symphony, but something like that, which a really prestigious orchestra. And they did a couple of Christmas songs and the anthem. The anthem's really nice.
Wow.
And I have multi-tracks of all that. I'll send you those.
Yeah.
They're fun to make. They're fun to mix.
Yeah, man. You need to send me that. I'd love to hear that, man. I love that kind of stuff, man. I really do. So how so out of all your different experiences in the audio world, if you could go back to work tomorrow doing one, I mean, I know everybody needs to go back to work, but what would you prefer? Yeah.
Just as long as they pay my rate, I'll do any of them.
Nice. That's what
I usually say.
Well, that's what I was getting at.
Saying that gets me into all this trouble.
Yeah. But here's the thing, man. Out of all that, what do you prefer to do the most? And what's your favorite? Well,
music, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
In any variety, whether it's performance or being a live sound engineer or recording it. It's a treat to see it happen live.
I know.
Any way that you can.
I know. Something about live, man.
Mm-hmm.
seeing it go down, just being in the room.
It's nice to see it. It's nicer to see it performed by the people that do it, obviously, because, coming up, you see, I mean, I must have done thousands of wedding bands, I mean, literally.
Mhm.
And even that was good training, because I ended up doing, probably one of the biggest party artists of all time, J.T. Taylor, and so being able to mix that music became incredibly useful.
Wow.
Because it was almost effortless for me to be able to mix him. Sure, it has its complications because it's very specific in terms of what it needs to have.
Mm-hmm.
But having the experience of mixing all these dinner bands that did basically that music kind of gave me some training, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah. Wow.
So when it came to, I was cold called because I was alerted that he was going to call me. But the guy that suggested me has 3 Grammys. So, when he called me and told me that, I was already kind of a little nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Because you never get called from an artist directly to mix, at least an artist like that, for you to mix their sound. At least I wasn't particularly used to that sort of thing.
Right. And he just called you up and said, "Hey, man."
He called me one day. He's like, "Hey, Dennis, Phil said that I should give you a call." I'm like, "Me?" So sure, So
That's cool, man.
And then we talked for a little while and kind of hit it off, and then basically I talked to his. At first, they kind of played it kind of like they were some kind of corporation. Ended up basically being like his wife being the manager, and so it became very informal very quickly. And then they had a rehearsal coming up for a show, and did the rehearsal, and everything was great. Did a private party in Connecticut. It was awesome. We went from there.
Wow. That's awesome.
And it was just really cool. The music again. If you know the music of Kool and the Gang, it's very simple. But again, it has its complications because you have equipment limitations and things like that. And if you're not judicious and in essence know your shit, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. Especially if you already talk yourself into a game of getting paid a sweet amount of money per day,
right?
Compared to what you usually get.
Right. They want everything to be perfect, man. Or at least, yeah.
And it's my world, it's my department, and I insist on it.
Right.
And until I don't see people shaking their heads, my job's not done.
Right. That's great, man. I love it, dude. I love it. But you know what? Where you're at behind the booth, behind the board, it a lot of times it sounds a lot different than where the guy is up close to the stage or in the top,
Yeah. It's sometimes a necessary evil, but it is something that it's changing. That has to do a lot with culture, with technology in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And misconceptions that start with basically thinking that the concept of stereo sound works for a venue, because in essence, besides the main guy doing the sound, maybe 20% of the audience gets a stereo sound.
Right.
Other than that, a lot of people are just getting a skewed image of one big side, a little bit of the other. Or something just really directly, depending on where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that a lot of people just don't know that there's other ways of doing things besides stereo. Mm-hmm. There's ways of folding things into mono and making it sound fuller, but at the same time using what's happening on stage sonically.
Right. Without
the PA as an aid to that imaging.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm very slowly veering away from doing stereo. even though some of my clients demand it on their rider. But then it's a matter of trying to educate your client.
Mm-hmm. I ran
because even though they're not hearing stereo, they're still hearing the music and it's pumping. But anywhere you go in the venue, it's going to sound that way. It's going to sound really good. The effect is there, and the snare sounds snappy, and everything sounds really cool the way you want it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you're kind of leaning toward the mono side, correct? I mean,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it makes more sense. You end
up working with a lot of people that have been around a lot longer than you, and you hear what they do, and you pick up what works, and you take and you shed what doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because otherwise you're going to have this person way over here, and he's going to hear the guitar over there, and then
a lot of times it's just concepts that you learn along the way. A lot of times it's pieces of gear that make you do something different. For instance, when the first time my buddy Jason Greenberg, who worked with me closely in a couple of productions, brought out the Telefunken M82 microphone, which is a dynamic for kick. It looks kind of like a broadcast mic. It's a big black mic, but it's made for kick. It's really good. I tried it. I put it on, and the first thing I noticed that it was very enhanced. Everything was really present, almost like sounded distorted. But then I noticed that the microphone itself has a couple of different switches. And so like this curve or something, I forget what they called it. They're little curves. But once I took that out, had the microphone flat, and I bypassed my EQ, the microphone sounded amazing, and I only needed one microphone rather than two.
Nice.
So that's one microphone I really recommend, is the Telefunken M82.
Okay, on the kick, yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm. On it, I mean, I'm sure it sounds amazing on anything else that requires low end. I'm sure it's great on bass too.
That's the flat microphone, isn't it? That sits on.
No, this one, it looks kind of like the 103, but it's black.
Okay.
And the head basket is a round, kind of like a 47.
Okay.
But it's not a side address. It's a front address for the top.
Okay.
But it's big. The diaphragm is it's a dynamic, so it doesn't need to be small. It's the size of, say, like the round of an RE20.
That's what I was kind of thinking.
But it's not as long.
Okay. I think I know exactly what mic you're talking about. Wow.
It's very good. It's not very expensive. I'm definitely going to get one. It's I haven't had to get one yet because Jason's always has his. I always tell him to bring it. And we don't use generic mics for our fact.
Yeah. Does that have a pad on it? That mic?
It has a pad. It has a couple of different filters besides the pad itself.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So that's really good.
It is a very good mic. It's one of my next purchases.
Go to, yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow, man.
Just to build a collection, because obviously I don't record drums here, but it's just something that I'm not going to hesitate to put on drums. So now I don't really have anything specifically for drums. The last time, luckily, I didn't need to put something. I didn't need the sound to be very heavy on a kick, so I was able to get away with using a 421, and it was perfect for it.
Yeah, that's a good mic, man. That 421.
Mics are old, so it has a little bit of a better sound, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And mine from the 70s. There's the U5 version.
Oh, wow. So, you and I were talking about that the other night, old versus new.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't believe that picture you sent me. And I wasn't until today before I actually got a chance to look at it and go through everything.
There's nothing to it. It's all metal.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And that gasket that goes around the circuit board's all rubber. That's what isolates a lot of the sound. But when you pick up that body, and I've tried it, actually just plug it in with nothing on it, it sounds like a completely different mic. Really?
So the body has a lot to do with the sound?
Well, there's internal resonances, and the mass of that metal itself provides somewhat to the character of that resonance on the inside.
I'm just going to have to say I really didn't like the idea of the concept of having the XLR soldered right to the board like that.
Well, that makes it easier for the average person to not be able to fix anything. That's why they do that.
Wow.
But, something like I have no problem disassembling stuff, especially that. I look at it, I laugh because it was funny. I was like, oh, that's why it doesn't cost, 2 or 3 times as much.
Right.
Because then you go and you open an 87, it's another story.
Definitely.
There's a little bit more meticulous. There's a frame, and everything has a little bit more involved care.
Yeah. Isolation and stuff.
A lot more components, and it's not surface mount stuff. If you notice, the TLM 103 is all surface mount stuff, which is all miniature stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much no one can service that other than a specialized facility.
Or just,
I would want to mess with that stuff.
No.
It's all small. I can't do surface mount. I don't have anything that small.
I wonder if you just have to order a whole new board. I mean, if something.
Well, it's a different company. What they do, they just send you a whole new mic at that point. Or, if it's like the capsule, they'll probably change the capsule.
Right.
But that circuit board is, I'm sure it's just, they toss it in a box.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I was surprised when you sent me that, dude. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? But the sound, I mean, if you wouldn't have showed me that, I would have never thought.
One of these days, I'll do a test again. I'll record a test with a guitar, with the cage, out of the cage, and inside the cage.
You need to do that.
Yeah. Maybe after Christmas we'll do something like that.
Yeah, you need to do that. You need to do that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I'll compare it to the roadie.
Yeah, there you go.
The modified roadie.
Oh man, so tell me about that mic, dude.
The NT2.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one I got, and I started doing some research about it before I bought any of them, and they were discontinued because they looked too close to the Neumann 87.
Mm-hmm.
The circuit was very close or whatever, and they used very high quality components. It was built in Australia by hand, and I think they got sued by Neumann, so they dropped it from the lineup. But it became known as a microphone that sounded pretty decent considering what it cost.
Wow.
And that there were different types. Not all of them were very good. The earlier ones that don't have a sticker in the back with the CE, the European thing, they just have I think just say a number and then the numbers on it. Those are the ones that you want to get to modify. And there's a company that sells parts for microphones. I think it's the one that not the Mic and Mod, the other one that makes all the other clones.
Oh, microphoneparts.com. Yeah.
Mic parts.
Yeah.
Microphone parts. That one.
Yeah.
They have a section where they have modification kits for some certain microphones, and they have one for the NT2.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not know that. Okay. Wow.
And the modification is literally their kit is I guess this one RK47 capsule.
Okay.
And I think a little tool, a couple of screws, and plastic, a different cup to mount the capsule on.
Oh, the little saddle. Yeah.
Yeah, because the one that comes on the roadie obviously fits that capsule, and the screws don't fit if you try them.
Wow.
So, and I think I found that when I went to do that, they had like their clearance section. They had I think it was a second capsule that was like defective or something. That was a lot cheaper. I think but they're not that bad. They're like $140, $150 anyways new. But this one was like $80. I got it a little cheaper. And there's a video on YouTube of a guy that does the mod, step by step, and it's really not that difficult if you know your way around.
Yeah. So
simple tools.
You changed the capsule out on that microphone?
Yeah. It's really easy.
You put the 47 in there, the RK?
The RK47.
Nice.
And that's all really you needed to do with their instructions. And it does sound. It doesn't sound like an 87, obviously, but it's definitely not a Japanese sounding mic,
Right.
Australian sounding mic.
Right. So
it sounds pretty nice.
So I was going to ask you, that's not the capsule that's white around the perimeter, is it?
No,
they sell.
Theirs is gold.
Okay.
The RK-47, the screws are kind of red. At least the one I got.
Okay.
But it looks like your standard capsule that you see on eBay or Chinese or whatever. I'm sure they say they're assembled. No, what the guys in Microphone Parts say that they buy the Chinese ones and they refurbish them to like higher spec or whatever.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. And they do sound a little better and make the microphone sound a little better.
Yeah.
Last year I got another one, another NT2, and that's one of the ones that didn't have that old serial number.
Okay.
And that one I forget. I tried to put the cap from the old NT2 on it, and I wasn't able to get it to sound. So I put the original back on it. And if I haven't put another one on it.
Yeah. So
that one's back to stock.
So
I have two NT2s. One's modified and one's stock.
Oh, wow.
But they're both different eras.
Right. So they also make the where you can change the caps and whatnot on them too, upgrades. So not just the capsule. Have you ever done any of that or no?
Not on like actual cap type microphones.
Right.
Just replacing the actual diaphragm.
Diaphragm, yeah. Well, I was going to say, what about the Mic Mod? What about their capsules? Where do they come from?
Well, it's European, but all the parts are legitimate Eastern European German parts.
Nice.
I can't wait to be able to buy one of those.
I know, man. Right? I know, man. That's
The funny thing with those guys is that they're very popular. They do go out of stock really quickly. Like a lot of times when you go to order, they're like already out of stock.
Wow. Especially
with their pre-sale right now.
Wow, I bet so, man.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, that capsule you showed me in the picture, that's 34 millimeter? 34
millimeter? It was 33.
33.
But I'm guessing I was just looking behind the light. With a ruler, it looked to be around 33. So with the armature, it could be 32.
32, yeah.
I'm guessing,
Yeah, because I want to say in the Rode NT1, I think there's a 32 in there, man.
Well, those capsules are fairly standard size. They don't really vary too much more than 32, 33.
Yeah.
And you might be able to find the spec on their website. Same with the Neumann.
Right.
The capsule size are usually listed as a spec.
Yeah, and you know what? There's really not enough room inside the grill to go to a 34 or 35 inside that.
Not really, yeah. Because then you start getting into big microphones like the M149, the M50, the M140 also. So those are big bodies.
I know, man. I know. Those big fat boys. So that 49, man, I wanted to ask you, does Flea have one out? It seems like
possibly, but I don't know if you got a chance to check out the Palooza mics.
I haven't. I've seen that link.
You should. Yeah, those are made here in the States, and they're very, very good clones. And he makes probably the most models. And he doesn't just do those. He does like the old 414 style,
okay.
Like
oh wow,
C12 style with the same body looking.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wow. That would be interesting.
Yeah, check his mics are really, really well rated.
Man, that OC12. What do you think about that? AKG.
I like it.
I know, but
I'm not opposed to it.
I know, but now they have the newer one out. What is it? The C12. I don't know.
Well, they have the VR.
VR, correct.
It's the same thing. It's just one has. I think the VR. I think it's some kind of special components that lets you use it without power supply.
Oh wow.
Could be. I'm not sure.
Okay. Same diaphragm, everything. Same old school. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know that puppy's a good penny.
Yeah.
you know. So it ought to sound good, you know. But yeah, I was checking it out the other day, man. It looks I wonder if it's close to the same color as the original, or is it the same color?
That green, I think, is just a kind of like a overstated version of it.
Okay.
Hey, Randy, just excuse me here for a second. I'm going to mute the mic, but I'm just using the microphone, the restroom real quick.
Okay, buddy. Okay.
All right, man.
All right, man. Cool.
I'll keep talking real quick.
Yeah. Okay, man. Sounds good. So tonight I have on Dennis Riva Adeniera, who is well known for doing mixing, and as you can hear, he's done all kind of things. And he is a microphone lover like myself, and we just enjoy talking about microphones together and all kind of cool stuff, man. But the topic tonight was pretty much the year the music died, and even though we did get off topic, that's okay, because we are talking about music and we are continuing the dream, man. You know, continue the dream, and it's just a beautiful thing, man. And I hope through this pandemic that we all can survive in some kind of way in the music industry and get back on track with things. It's a beautiful thing, man, when everybody comes together and puts their heads together for one goal, and that is to move forward. And I have no doubt in my mind, being an optimist that I try to be, that we are going to succeed, and we will not stay in this moment forever. As we know, time changes, and with that, so does everything else. So,
it sure does.
Thank you. Yes, yeah. So that's what I was saying, Dennis. Is that
time does move on.
Time will move on,
and we will be back.
And we will be back, man. That's right, man. And so, yeah, man, it's been great having you on tonight, Dennis. You know,
likewise, as always.
I always enjoy.
It's always fun to talk to everybody.
I know, man. I know, and your experience in the music is what I was just saying while you're gone, is how we're continuing the dream and we're making it happen, and time will move on, man, and we're gonna make it through this. We're all gonna make it through this,
Well, it's our responsibility, people out there, the musicians, they all feel they got a story to tell, even if it's their story or a story about somebody else or something they saw or something that's important to somebody.
That's right.
And in a way, it's our responsibility to capture it, to amplify it, to put it out there for other people to see if that story is a good one.
That's right, man.
That's where I'm coming from.
Well, man, I appreciate it, Dennis. I do. And we were going to get you on here again, man, and talk about some more neat stories that you've got.
Anytime. From A to Z, brother.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, thank you guys for joining in tonight. And we appreciate all you guys hanging out with us. And if you weren't able to hang out with us, I hope that you can come and check out our channel and see what we're doing here, because we got a lot of cool things going on, man. And we want you to be a part of the ride. And so until then, we will see you again.
Excellent, Randy.
There you go, Bubba.